the decision-making process.
So that's essentially what it's been, and the government's current position is that test by the executive branch alone constitutes due process. I would strongly disagree with that, but I think that's an issue that we're going to see evolution on.
This brings up a great point, and one final question before we open it up to the audience, is that you both seem to agree that this current process and limitations of the policy is at best murky. Especially at this time with lots of turnover with new secretaries of defense, new head of the CIA, and a new secretary of state, what would you suggest as the best policy towards either allowing or at least clarifying the drone strike policy? In his State of the Union speech, President Obama even went at length to say that his word is not enough. Alice, start with you.
I think that we should ban the use of drones abroad because there's already enough ignorance of the war in public. I don't think the public really thinks about the war on a day-to-day basis, and it's not part of their daily life. And by taking the troops out of our involvement abroad, what it would do is it would take us one step farther from where we are already, where the public is already. And war will just become in the back of the minds of Americans. It won't ever be there. And it's also not moral. It's not moral to kill somebody with thousands and thousands and thousands miles and miles away without ever having to look at them face to face, without ever having to look at these civilizations and these peoples that you're just destroying.
Great points, an impassioned case as well. Janine?
Like I said at the beginning, I think that it would be immoral not to use drones as one weapon of war that we have. I think it should be our top priority to protect the lives of our soldiers. When we have decided that we need to wage war, we need to wage it in a way that protects our soldiers as much as humanly possible, and this is certainly one of those ways. I think that the drone program is, however, like I said, a weapon of war. It should be under the Defense Department, along with the other weapons of war. The CIA should not be running this essentially as a paramilitary covert operation. And with regards to the killing of American citizens, I don't have a concrete solution for that, whether it should ever be allowed. One that has been proposed was creating a special drone court, like a FISA court. FISA is the authorization for the government to wiretap people under certain circumstances, and you get a special warrant for that. One proposal is to have a similar system for drone strikes against American citizens who obviously we can't exactly put them on trial because they're over there, however they are a real threat to American lives in the war on terror. So I definitely think we need something and much greater protections than we currently have. That might be a good idea. I'm open to others, but these should definitely be incorporated as one part of the American military strategy.
Another great set of points. Any questions from the audience? Yes, in the back.
What checks, if any, are there to ensure that this program is not abused?
Either of you?
Currently?
Yeah, currently. I get it. Currently?
Currently, or is legislation imminent? Is it possible?
Currently, there are none.
That's basically the point. I'd like to elaborate slightly in that the president is supposed to inform the president is supposed to inform the foreign intelligence committees of both houses of Congress when doing a covert action like this. In extreme circumstances, that can be restricted to the Gang of 8, which is 8 high congressional leaders. So there's supposed to be at least some information. There's question on whether that's actually happened. And even if the president has kept Congress informed, like he's claimed to, that doesn't constitute an actual check. But I look forward to seeing legislation on it.
And actually, like as it's articulated in the white papers, what it says is a high-ranking official, and it doesn't specify what the high-ranking official is, so it could possibly be anybody.
For what it's worth, there was a leaked report where President Obama suggested that every single report, every single killing goes by his desk, and that he signs off individually. It's not taken care of by the agency itself. Of course, you have to take that with a grain of salt. And the bit about Augustine Aquinas is based in truth. He does base his opinions on whether, or decisions to strike on theories of just war. Another question? David King.
This question is for Janine. You mentioned the 3 Americans that got killed during the drone strikes. And you also said that due process doesn't necessarily mean judicial process as a 5th Amendment right. Well, you also have a 6th Amendment right to the right to face your accuser. And when you get killed in an execution without an execution letter, or even knowing who your killer is, that's not the right to face your accuser. How do you justify this unconstitutional action?
That's a great question. Also, if I could just bring it also to the general question of, do we consider a combatant a criminal or an enemy combatant? I think it's also along those lines.
Yeah, in justifying that, I would return to the case of ex parte Quirin, which, like I said, establishes that an American who has taken belligerent actions against America can be considered an enemy combatant and treated as such. In World War II, this meant that a German saboteur who happened to be an American citizen could be tried in, I think it was by military commission, and executed along with other saboteurs. So it's a pretty well-established jurisprudence that when someone is taking up arms against America, they can be treated as an enemy combatant regardless of their citizenship.
I would like to add on that one of the 3 American citizens that were killed was a 16-year-old boy. And he was killed in a separate drone attack than the first drone attack, which killed his father, and there's no real evidence that he was an enemy combatant.
I mean, I'm not going to defend that, and I'm certainly not going to defend all uses of this program. I agree that it has been misused and can continue to be misused, but I think that it can be reformed so that it can be useful.
Valid points on both sides. And one final question. Abby?
Yes, okay. This is also for Janine, but you can chime in after. So, Janine, you're citing this case ex parte Quirin.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that that case was actually really pushed through because it was an effort to make the United States seem like we were doing more to defend ourselves from the Nazis than we were doing, and actually the verdict was released before the opinion was written, which is totally not how it works, and subsequently 4 out of the 9 justices said that they disagreed with their votes because it was just pushed through and kind of crazy, and the guy actually wasn't really a German spy. And so for the next 60 years, it was never used because it was thought of as a fake decision, and then only in the W. Bush administration was it brought back up in order to justify the killing of American citizens. Does that in any way color your opinion of whether that's a valid use of?
So a few points about that. First of all, yeah, it was rushed, but that's not necessarily super odd. The Pentagon Papers case, for example, the decision was also released before the opinions were written. There's a procedure for expediting cases. So that itself isn't extremely unusual. And it has been reaffirmed in decisions since then. The Supreme Court, not the current court, but a court close to the current one, reaffirmed it in the decision I was talking about, Hamdi v. Rumsfeld, which again reaffirmed that an American citizen can be considered an enemy combatant. That was particular to this war, and that they're not necessarily entitled to a judicial process for due process. So I think that the current court and courts close to current have reaffirmed that that is a useful part of our jurisprudence.
If you want to respond, and also we can start our closing remarks. We're going to try to go into circles soon.
I have no response.
Okay, but you have closing remarks in general.
Okay. So I guess what does our drone policy right now and the continuation of drone use abroad say about the American legacy? What will it contribute to the American legacy? How will it benefit us as a country? How will it benefit our